how I do the work is the person comes into my space, or a group of people are coming into my space, and I listen to them, because
Mm-hmm.
whatever needs attention is active right now in their life at that moment. So they
Mm-hmm.
just explain to me where they are stuck. And then through my questions, I will go deeper, wider, maybe sometimes, to understand what kind of pattern at the moment is active in their life.
Juta Lipmeister is a clarity guide and frequency calibrator who helps people spot the subtle self-deception that keeps them stuck and return to clean, grounded truth. Her work blends sharp pattern recognition with practical recalibration, allowing clients to make decisions without confusion, pressure, or performance. She works with ambitious, self-aware people who are tired of overthinking and ready to move from distortion to precise alignment in business, relationships, and identity. Yuta is known for seeing what others miss, the pattern beneath the story, the contradiction beneath the explanation, and the quiet inner agreements that shape behavior beneath awareness. Her approach is calm, direct, and rooted in real-world precision, shaped by years of working with complex system, identity shifts, and decision-making under pressure. Rather than offering motivation or fixes, her work restores clarity so the next step becomes obvious and sustainable. She speaks on clarity over performance, identity shifts, emotional authority, and how to stop outsourcing your inner truth. Hi, Yuta. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hello. I'm also very happy to be here, and I'm very excited.
Yes. Okay. So this was such an amazing introduction, but I would love it if you could kind of give me your backstory and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing, and then we can delve into the details of the work after that.
Yes. So the moment I actually uh, went into this was the moment when, by background, I'm an accountant, so very structured. And there was a moment when, a few years ago, when I gave over a client to another accountant. And I know that I have my own ways of figuring out solutions which are a bit out of the box. But that accountant gave me a feeling that I had made a lot of mistakes. So before, I was the one who tried to please others and explain, over explain, sort of seek validation that I have done everything right.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that sentence, that it's okay to do the mistakes. But after a few phone calls with her, I really felt that at this moment it was not allowed to make any mistakes. So it was a bit of like funny at some level for me. So these phone calls, they really like they felt heavy for me. I got so tired from like proving that I am worth, that I'm good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And but before that, I heard about shadow archetypes and light archetypes, and they were all sort of like mental level for me before that. But that moment was the point where I decided, okay, I will stop trying to prove her that I'm right, and I will look inside myself, because at that moment I realized that it is my pattern. I have felt this feeling before. I have been here before. And no matter how much I try not to make any mistakes, I'm still here. And I decided to look into myself, into my own shadows. And from there, it's all sort of started to roll out or
Mm-hmm.
unfold. I
Mm-hmm.
started from my own, um, because I had like no one else to, how to say, mm, I started from my like this deep uncomfortable feelings to understand why they show up, because
Mm-hmm.
because at that point it was I realized that there was, no matter how much I try, I will not be good enough for others. So what is there, which is in me, that is wrong. So, of course, there's nothing wrong, but over the years now, after like 5 years maybe now, I have realized that actually all these shadows which I experienced in myself were um, shadowing my inner genius sort of way. Like the bigger gifts I realized were behind these limiting beliefs I had. So over the years, I learned the language, how to explain to myself, to others, what's going on about, as I said, about different patterns which are alive inside of us. Yes, I think I will stop here for now.
So there's a lot actually that we can unpack in there. And so you had mentioned shadow and light archetypes. And so I'm wondering if we can go into discussion about like what exactly are shadow and light archetypes and how do you define them? How do you work with them?
Mm-hmm. So now, at this point of my work, I don't work with shadow archetypes anymore precisely. When I started, I really tried to understand which part of me goes under which kind of archetypes. There were a victim, a prostitute, a child, and I think there was one more. I don't remember anymore which one was that. Prostitute, child, uh, victim. I don't remember that one anymore. Probably that one wasn't the most active in me. So the opposite light archetypes for those were, for the prostitute there was a lover, for victim there was a warrior, for the uh, for
Child.
the child, there was sort of a king or a queen, something like that. But um, the mentor I was listening back then, she went in further. She went into darkness archetypes and genius archetypes. So I really went through over all those steps. And today I realize we don't actually need to make too complicated all this knowledge to understand ourselves. Sometimes it's just enough to recognize the pattern, understand if it helps us or not. Because otherwise, if we will start putting our attention into more shadow archetypes, the digging probably will never end. So it's
Yeah.
good at some point, but eventually our goal in our life is to move forward and to create like this more aligned decision-based journey for us.
Mhm. Mhm. And so then through your work, you're helping people to kind of identify those limiting beliefs and kind of unravel them?
Yes.
Yeah.
So how my work looks like is usually mm, I don't coach and I
Mhm.
don't really mentor.
Mhm.
I don't have one specific way how to work with people
Mhm.
or what tools to use. How I do the work is the person comes into my space, or a group of people are coming into my space, and I listen to them, because
Mhm.
whatever needs attention is active right now in their life at that moment. So they
Mhm.
just explain to me where they are stuck, and then through my questions, I will go deeper, wider, maybe sometimes, to understand what kind of pattern at the moment is active in their life.
Mhm.
Because usually, if you feel stuck in your business, for example, the same pattern plays out also in your romantic relationships, or with friends, or with at work.
Mhm.
So it's all like, and then when we recognize the pattern, because patterns are not to limit us, they
Mhm.
are for us to sort of to keep us safe.
Mhm.
These are like coping mechanisms from our past.
Mhm.
So then we understand why this pattern has been active and
Mhm.
how we want to rewrite it.
Mhm.
Because I like to compare our body as like with computer a bit, because
Mhm.
we are running on our programs, and for example, one program we do every day and we don't even think about it is our breathing. We don't really think about breathing, but it's always unconscious. But when we start doing breath work, we can manipulate it and like create changes. And then when we forget about it, then our breathing returns. Or if we put attention to it, we can bring our breathing more calmer or deeper over a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same with the different ways how we decide. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what are the steps then that you usually take with people to help them like really get over those limiting beliefs?
Mhm.
Because I feel like in my own personal journey, I've identified some limiting beliefs that I have. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to tell that story anymore. That's part of my past. But then when I try to implement the steps in order to overcome that and be like, okay, I'm going to have no blocks about finances, or I'm going to have no blocks about, relationships and finding love, or whatever the limiting belief may be. But then, I still sometimes feel like I don't necessarily see the results, and so I feel like I'm still fighting that limiting belief sometimes, even though I've consciously said, like, okay, this is no longer part of my story. And sometimes I feel like it takes a few times for you to really get over that. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
like, how do you work with people, or how do you ensure that those limiting beliefs are really, really gone and that there's not like deeper layers, or maybe it is layers of stuff that you have to work through? So, can you walk me
Mhm.
through that?
Yes. Um, I have to say that the patterns will not disappear just by bringing them on the surface and seeing them.
Mhm.
Or actually, the person who comes to me and the client, she or he has to make the work themselves to actually rewrite the pattern.
Mhm.
And we can only rewrite it consciously, paying attention to it. When you said, so I will circle a bit around your question.
Sure, yeah.
It's the same way I actually do my work. A client says something, and then I circle a bit, and then we come together, and it all makes sense. So
Mhm.
he said that when you see a pattern, and you will say, "Okay, I will stop telling that story." It
Mhm.
means you sort of like push it away from yourself.
Mhm.
So, but pushing away creates tension
Mhm.
in energy laws.
Mhm.
So when you push it away, you try to get it away from yourself. It will always return. The only way
Mm.
how can we sort of mm, deal with old stories, because you told about the story and the pattern, is that we actually need to understand or see from where it's rooted. And when we understand why we have been experiencing that and how do
Mhm.
we want to experience it another way, then whenever the pattern or the similar story starts to unfold, we consciously are able to notice it and redo the action.
Mhm.
We can also redo the action by going in our minds into the past, into the same situations, and like sort of redo it. And um, so this is the Christmas time, and New Year is coming, and everyone is saying, let go of all the old stories and step into the new." And just
Mhm.
3 days ago, I really like the idea of winter solstice a day,
Yeah.
where like the sun is in darkness for 3 days, and then it comes out, and today is the first day when it's longer. And
Mhm.
I realized we don't have to let anything go because it's part of us. The only thing we need is actually notice, give it space, and understand why it is part of us and how do we want to keep it in ourselves. So yes, we can
Mhm.
give away the tension against the story, but the story will always stay in our memory.
Mhm.
So you asked about the steps. How I will work with my client is she will tell a story or
Mhm.
stories. We will recognize a pattern. Then we see if the pattern is a surface level pattern or we can go deeper somewhere if there's
Mhm.
surfacing something else. And then I will ask her how she would like, because usually the patterns, they come to us when we are children and we are most vulnerable to our environments. So the patterns come usually from our outer environments. So then we can recognize if the pattern is supporting our own self or it's supporting the roles or identities we have taken on. And then when we understand what this pattern is holding on, what is this supporting, then we see, okay, I don't want to be in this identity anymore. I want to be this. I want to be me. And who is me? So we work a little bit with feelings, because when a person tells me a story, I also notice the feelings. When she goes further from herself, sort of her own frequency, and usually what we do is I try to give a person this feeling of her own signature frequency. And when she is in that, she feels the flow, the ease, everything is easy. And when we are able to feel that at least once, we can remember it. And we can actually consciously come back to the same feeling consciously without actually creating the outer environment for it. So then what we can do is we start to create the brain connections between different neurons. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we start to create the connection, and we strengthen it every time we get to this. So later, when a client really wants to make aligned decision, she will just go into her feeling of her frequency, her own frequency, and then she knows what is hers and what is not. So that is like very simplified way of what
Yeah.
I do or how I do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay. And like I think we all know that like a lot of these things like are programmed into us when we're kids, right? And I think a lot of the time though, it's not so easy for us to disconnect from these programs, especially when the programs are put in there by our parents or our family members or things like that. And so, how do you work with clients who are like obviously like I still want to have good relationships with my family, right? There are some programs that I can see running in, my family members that it's like I don't really want to identify with those programs anymore. And so then kind of disconnecting or like learning to stop running those programs while also still maintaining those family relationships or something like that, because it can be really hard when you start shifting your mindset and other people don't. So how do you help clients manage those kinds of things? Especially when like you obviously don't want to get rid of your family, to like fix your mindset or whatever because you love your family, but those things can be kind of difficult.
Yes.
Mhm.
I think this starts from unconditional love toward
Mhm.
yourself.
Mhm.
Because, as you said, you don't want to run these programs in yourself anymore. So when you feel that this program is still running, you feel sort of tension, or you don't want to feel it. So it's easier to sort of get rid of all the people who are having this program, and then maybe you are solving this. But
Mhm.
actually, if you start first giving yourself this real deep acceptance that even if this program is still showing up in yourself,
Mhm.
it's okay, because you're already noticing it. And if
Mhm.
you're noticing it, you're able to change it. And when you are able to accept this in yourself, that you are not
Mhm.
perfect, you are actually able to create this sort of, you don't have the same program with them with others anymore. And if you don't
Mhm.
have the same program, their programs will not trigger you anymore.
Mhm. Okay.
Yes, and I know this thing that sometimes it's so easy to sort of blame our parents that they gave us these programs or
Yeah.
beliefs, but actually maybe they have gotten these programs somewhere else. So if
Mhm.
we understand that they have done it all unconsciously, they
Mhm.
haven't done it consciously, so it's easy to sort of make peace with it, that they
Mhm.
are who they are. And of course, if there are relatives who are a bit like are very sort of like triggering,
Mhm.
then it's okay to like keep this space in between.
Mhm.
Even while talking, we don't have to get emotionally involved, because when
Mhm.
we get emotionally involved and we open ourselves up
Mhm. Mhm.
and they get into their programs, then we get hurt.
Mhm.
But actually, it's not them who are hurting us. We are the ones who are sort of letting go of this protective barrier at
Mhm.
first, and later, like it will be like this automatic, like, okay, they're having their program, that's fine, I don't have to like get involved into it. Because
Mhm.
um there's also saying whatever we admire in others is actually in ourselves, and
Mhm.
whatever we don't like in others is also in ourselves.
Mhm.
So it,
Mhm.
it can only trigger us as long as this trigger lives in our body.
Mm. That's interesting. That's interesting. I've always kind of assumed, like, I've always kind of known that, and that's one thing that I've really been working on lately is that when something or someone triggers me and then I recognize like, okay, there's something there within me that I need to look at, like why, like what is the trigger specifically and why is that triggering me and what do I need to like what is that telling me that there I need to shift inside me, right? Because really, ultimately, the only thing that we can control is ourselves, right? And so, going back to what you were saying, like when you become like self-aware or like when you become like awakened or whatever and you recognize that you can no longer blame your circumstances, or you can no longer blame your life on like your parents or like the external factors, right? Really it all comes down to you and what you kind of allow or what you tolerate. And so like blaming your parents, okay, it's good to recognize where these limiting beliefs came from, but now that you're aware, what can you do to change it? Because the only way your life will change is if you change something inside of you or change something about you. And so I like what you also said about them, like probably their parents passed it down to them and then they passed it down to you. And that can go back for generations sometimes, right? And so that's when we start talking about like intergenerational trauma. And like when you become aware of those kinds of things being passed down from generation to generation to generation, and then you make the decision like, okay, this stops with me, right?
Yes,
So,
exactly.
mhm,
Because when you notice that you don't like something, you can ask,
mhm,
if I don't like this, what do I want then? And that's
mhm,
the only way how to break the pattern. And I
mhm,
wanted to bring one more thing here about the triggers.
mhm,
Because when something is triggering us, it's not only because there is some work we haven't done in ourselves yet with this pattern. It's actually there are at least two or
mhm,
three different ways this trigger is surfacing in us. So the
mhm,
first trigger is that maybe we ourselves have this program. So we
mhm,
can look into ourselves and see, okay, maybe we actually are acting the similar way.
mhm,
So this is only the one. The second one is the one where the trigger is there for us only to learn to set the boundaries.
mhm,
So maybe there's the only thing we need to do with this trigger or relationship is to understand where I haven't set my boundaries and where I allow to overrun myself.
mhm,
Because we are the ones who allow to overrun over ourselves. And the
mhm,
third one is like, as we already said, if I don't want this one, then what do I want? Which means like we are able to, with this trigger helps us to set the standards.
mhm.
So these are the three main things when I look at my own patterns, which are surfacing. I always look at the standards, the boundaries, and the pattern if I'm running it myself.
Mhm, mhm. I want to talk about boundaries because I feel like boundaries is a topic. I mean, maybe people were talking about it a long time before, but I feel like it's a topic that's been coming up more and more in the past few years about boundaries and learning how to set boundaries. And um, It's really difficult, it's really difficult to set boundaries sometimes, especially when, again, you're dealing with people who are used to you behaving and acting in certain ways. And sometimes you can be afraid of the consequences, I guess, of setting boundaries. So, how do you coach people through that to like stay firm on boundaries of like, this is how I want to be treated. This is what I will and will not tolerate in my life. And then learning to accept, if you lose people in your life, or if like if you maybe you're setting boundaries around like a job or something like that. So like not getting a job, or like not getting, if you're in
Mhm,
relationships, like you're not like you lose a relationship or something like that, because that can be really painful. So, like, what are your advice, or what's your advice, or how do you coach people through standing firm on boundaries? Because that's something I still struggle with.
mhm. So, when talking about boundaries, um, I have this belief that whatever is in our physical reality is projection of our inner reality.
Mhm.
Yes. So setting the boundaries starts from actually from the inside. It's not
Mhm.
about telling it out loud right away. We figured out, oh, this is our boundary, and then we go to our friends and relatives and co-work and say, okay, this is my boundary, and you have to hold
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
No,
No.
at
Yeah.
first you have to able to hold your own boundaries. And I I understand that this, as you said, it has been talked a lot about setting the boundaries,
Mhm.
and it's important topic because I understand as for me um, the conversation about the boundaries has involved for me is also at first we realize where outer reality is crossing our boundaries, and then we try to set them
Mhm.
outside.
Mhm.
Yes, so it started from there because it
Mhm.
comes into our conscious mind, and then we see, okay, where we have to like take action. But now I have realized that actually the next step is a bit deeper and setting boundaries in myself. What
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean like this person can't do that. That person is only a trigger to understand where my inner boundaries actually are, and to notice where this boundary is still not being met in other parts of our life also. Because very often this same boundary plays out in every part of our life, but the person who is triggering us to set the boundary is probably, if it's only has started out, is probably the safest way for the sort of the universe showing us where the boundary is not set. Because if
Mhm.
we get into conflict with them, and or we are able to sort of we're able to express the boundary with them easier than with other parts who we also haven't have who we also have allowed to override the boundary haven't been set. So
Mhm.
example here is mm, for example, I have been this person who is like oversharing all the time,
Mhm.
feeling in the space between conversations, like all the time, all the time. And I felt good at like, because I felt useful, and my insights are so interesting, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Yuta, you're doing so great."
Mhm.
And but after these moments, I felt very tired. So I realized that so in every like the patterns, the boundaries, they're all like interconnected with with each other and
Mhm.
layered. So I
Mhm.
realized that I like to do that because then I'm recognized by others. But at the
Mm.
same time, I every time I overrode my boundary, I overgave, I overshared just to get the
Mhm.
recognition. So now when I understood, okay, I will set myself a boundary that was I will stop oversharing. What will
Mhm.
happen then? And
Mhm.
what happened? I have zero people reaching out to me, like from friends. Like I have zero friend conversations. It's like I'm sitting like in a vacuum, like
Mhm.
the empty space. But I
Mhm.
also realized that whenever I want to make this shift or quantum jump, as they a lot of talk about,
Mhm.
it all happens in our physical reality. But if the
Mhm.
physical reality is already set,
Mhm.
there's no space for the new. So it
Mhm.
has to sort of fall apart before the
Mhm.
new can come in. And also
Mhm.
the before the new comes in and everything falls apart, it's sort of like a bit of like a test. Am I able
Mhm.
to hold my boundary no matter what, or I'm still in a place where I rather sell myself off and still
Mhm.
be a prostitute?
Mhm.
And where then the shadow archetypes come in. Where am I a
Yeah.
prostitute? Giving away my boundaries. So it
Yeah.
starts first from understanding where am I allowing to override my boundaries.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the first question. And
Mhm.
then when that is set, I can start looking at where others are not meeting it. Because usually when we allow, everyone are driving over the boundaries. But when we
Mhm.
set them ourselves, others also stop.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think like one of the most difficult parts for me about setting boundaries is when like there are some people. I've had the unfortunate circumstance of being involved with quite a few people who what I would consider like heavy narcissists. And so when you start setting boundaries with those people and they have these like really visceral, like angry, negative reactions because now all of a sudden it's not even about like, okay, like I don't like it when you do this. It's like, no, actually you're being abusive towards me and this has to stop. And then those like really, really visceral negative reactions can have a huge impact on you in terms of self doubt because now like the conversation revolves around how you're a horrible person and you're disrespectful because of this, that, and the other thing. Right. And then it starts implanting these feelings of self doubt in your brain. So, how do you work with people to like not have those cases of
Mhm.
self-doubt?
I would start from asking from exactly the sentence which comes up concerning the self doubt. You told a lot like maybe I'm wrong or maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm a
Mhm.
bad person. But
Mhm.
I would take the exact sentence. Are you open to look into it right now, or do you
Yeah,
want to?
sure. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
So, what kind of sentence comes up the most actively when you think about the situation?
Um, I don't like mostly it's just like maybe this person is right. Like maybe I am a horrible human being
Okay,
and
you're a horrible so that you're a horrible human being.
mhm.
That's what triggers you. Yes? And that is the place where you start self-doubting.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm not that good. Maybe I'm actually much more horrible. I just don't see it.
Mhm.
Mhm. So, what and that one sentence is next doorway for you to understand yourself more. So
Mhm.
actually get clear who you actually are and what do you
Mhm.
believe about yourself. Because if
Mhm.
they say this sentence to you and it feels true, it means you are believing still external world more than yourself.
Mhm.
And I also believe that these narcissistic relationships, they come only to people who otherwise are very confident.
Mhm.
They wouldn't see themselves when they um you wouldn't see these limiting sentences if they
Mhm.
didn't tell it to you so directly.
Mhm.
Because if you were much softer,
Mhm.
they would need much smaller trigger. They wouldn't be
Mhm.
sent any narcissists.
Mhm.
And about the narcissistic relationships, um, I have been married for 12 years and together with my, now I have been divorced last year, but we were together 17 years with
Mhm.
the father of my children. And after divorcing him and starting to reevaluate our relationship with him together, we realized that I had a lot of very narcissistic behaviors. I had.
Mhm.
And I never thought about them. I thought that I'm this good person who just wants good to others. I just see the truth and I tell them that. But actually, this really like diminished another person. So for us, it was sort of, I don't know, luck or whatever. He was okay to give me all the power or all the control. So it never really went that deep as like, so he didn't hold on to his identity. So I ran everything, household, what we wear, who we what we eat, who we talk with, like everywhere, and that sense of control gave me safety. And probably with narcissists, it is the same way. They need to have this control of their own perception. Otherwise, they will not feel safe. But that is their problem. But then just ask, whatever they are telling you, what does it trigger in you? And if you said, maybe I'm this horrible person, I will ask you, do you actually feel that it's true? In which sense you are a horrible person?
No, I don't think I'm a horrible person at all. I think though that like there's a lot of manipulation in the words that were used toward me that led to this. And so then it's like it starts small, like it starts small and unnoticeable and planting seeds of self-doubt within you, and then it builds up and it builds up and it builds up until these massive things come out, like you're just a horrible human being. And because you have this level of like trust in this person, that whatever they say is true, that when these big declarations come out, then all of a sudden, oh, maybe they're right, maybe because they were right about all these other things, so
Mhm.
but they've slowly made you believe all of these other things as well, so there's like a level of manipulation there that gets you to doubt yourself, and
Yeah.
then all
And
of
I
a
think,
sudden. Yeah.
I'm sorry that's interrupting you, but I think
No.
that's actually like the fast track to your own inner confidence, because
Mhm.
they have come in slowly, as you said, built it up. They even made you believe almost that they are right, but
Mhm.
there's still some doubt, and that
Mhm.
doubt is your inner self.
Mhm.
And then you can really, and as this doubt has been surfacing and
Mhm.
this idea who you are has been surfacing in your
Mhm.
conscious mind, and you start to ask it if it's true,
Mhm.
then you are able to consciously decide, am I
Mhm.
this person? No, I'm not. Who I am then? And when you
Mhm.
actually understand and decide, no, I am this one, then
Mhm.
no matter how much manipulation it comes from others,
Mhm.
then when you're able to overcome um, these perceptions or judgments from a narcissist, you're
Mhm.
able to overcome whatever judgments in the world, I believe.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that is that way. If you look at this relationship dynamic that way, then it could be also seen as a gift in
Mhm.
a way. Because
Mhm.
every shadow, every trigger for me is a doorway or a gift or however you want to call it, closer to ourselves.
Mhm.
Every trigger we have in our life is a
Mhm.
way to get closer to ourselves.
Mhm.
And when we know ourselves, there's even this sentence, know thyself, somewhere in
Mhm.
ancient
Mhm.
buildings. If you know yourself, nothing is able to uh, misdirect you.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that is the main thing, what we can work on. Just know ourselves and decide who we want to be and where we want to go.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would say, like, it took me a while, but definitely, from the negative experiences that I've had in the past, like, I definitely see those, like, it hurt like hell at the time, it was really painful at the time, but man alive, did I ever grow and like flourish because of that, because it was like, actually, it really helped me, even though, like, these people were trying to smother me and, like, I know it sounds maybe a little bit cliche, but they were really trying to dim my light and make me smaller. And I think that the smaller that I made myself, the more like the better these people felt about themselves, right? Because it is about that power and control, right? And so then when all of a sudden I realized actually you're just trying to dim my light, right? And so then when I recognized that and I finally stood up and had the courage to say no and basically fuck off, like I felt the shift inside of me and I felt the power and I was like, actually, this is who I am and this is what I stand for. And, like if you're not on board with that, then please exit, stage left, what kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the pain of going through it in the moment is real, but who you become on the other side is so much bigger and better, because now you've learned to
Yeah.
set those boundaries. So I wanted to talk about your own journey as well, though, like a little bit more, because a lot of your training just comes from like looking inward to yourself. And like, how was the transition for you? Because a lot of the time when we go from these like normal jobs, from like being an accountant, or in my case, like I'm in real estate, and so like these normal jobs, and then kind of totally flipping gears into something entirely different. And like how does that work, in terms of, or how did that work for you in terms of kind of discovering this was how you wanted to contribute to the world?
Mhm. So it has been a long journey. It has been a
Yeah.
journey. So from that moment I told about to getting here, it wasn't really a straight road because so as I said, I have three kids. So I have three kids
Mhm.
who are all under 10 years old,
Mhm.
and when the first was born, and I started to read the book written by Maria Montessori,
Mhm.
Absorbent Mind. I really suggest everyone to read it if they have kids or not. I read that book and I cried because I realized how the patterns are actually getting into our minds and how they shape our identities as children.
Mhm.
And that moment, I decided that in Estonia, I'm living in Estonia. So if there will be Montessori kindergartens or schools, I will send my kids to there. But if not, then they will be homeschooled. And at that
Mhm.
moment, there were no Montessori educational centers in Estonia.
Mhm.
But I don't know, was it my dedication or luck or altogether? Today, I'm in a place where my two older daughters are in Montessori class, which was the first Estonian Montessori class opening in
Mhm.
a governmental school, and the
Mhm.
second class in the whole Estonia.
Mhm.
So at first, I did homeschool my children until they were all opened. And
Mhm.
when they were opened, be- uh, I, as a mother, I finally was able to let go of the tension of
Mhm.
holding the standards I chose.
Mhm.
I was burnt out. Not
Mhm.
only work, mother, human. It was 2 years ago where I was just I felt burnt out and I left Estonia for
Mhm.
2 months.
Mhm.
Kids stayed home with the father. Um, yeah, so in that period of time, I still try to find another ways how to contribute to the world because I didn't know exactly what is
Mhm.
my genius or what is my gift, why I'm here. Today I
Mhm.
know, but
Mhm.
at that point I thought, okay, I will go after my shadows and I will discover. So I created a permaculture farm. I studied as a permaculture designer and permaculture teacher because it was
Mhm.
all about patterns in nature. By that time, I already know a lot about Montessori. And then I
Mhm.
started to notice this, like this like overlay of all
Mhm.
these things I have learned, the Montessori method, the permaculture, and my own like this patterns and paradigms and shadows, all that, they're all the same. Everything
Mhm.
is the same. And I realized that I had to go through so many different, they seem different kind of trainings to come together here in the middle, because now today I see that we are not separate from nature. We have the
Mhm.
same patterns as nature has. So there's also a saying, don't fight the nature, work with it to create
Mhm.
the best results. And it's also with our own patterns. Don't fight them. Try to find how to work with them and then
Mhm.
sort of tweak them. And you're able to get the force of the life and
Mhm.
get it much easier. And
Mhm.
also with children and the plants, there was this in Montessori method and in permaculture, there's this thing that you don't have to work with the child. You don't have to work the child or the plant. You have to give the perfect environment, or as
Mhm.
good as environment as possible. Are you a
Mhm.
gardener or are you a guide in a class? You have to create the environment where a person can flourish, to
Mhm.
understand what is their way, where in what direction they want to go. So I
Mhm.
think it has also helped me in this work right now. I don't try to coach people into direction I think they should go, or the tools that should work the way everyone else, like in English it give the tools that should work the same way on everyone. No,
Mhm.
it's the same thing. I listen to a person, what
Mhm.
kind of environment they're in, and then we try to tweak
Mhm.
together what is at the moment off, so they are able to go in their own direction.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Okay.
don't know if it answered the question how. So the transition wasn't easy. There were these different um, try different ways to try to fit into the
It
whole picture of how to be of service to others.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. What are some of the methods that you use to help people, like, discover their own genius? Because you spoke about discovering your, I guess, your passion or your purpose. I like what the word you use, though, like, discovering your genius.
So the main thing is to understand the biggest shadows active at
Mhm.
that moment in the person. When we are, because genius is nothing else than the same shadow, just
Mhm.
flipped, just the
Mhm.
other side of the coin. There's
Mhm.
like, if you follow your shadow, you will find your genius.
Mhm.
Whatever you're frightened the most, whatever judgments you're afraid the most. For example, if you're afraid of public speaking, as Eric admits said, he was
Mhm.
frightened of public speaking, but now when he like overcame this, he loves this job. So
Mhm.
it's the same thing. I um and when at first this idea, it really like caught my attention, but now I really have like felt it on me also. And the way it is that I started to look what are my own biggest shadows. And my biggest shadows, I started to go really into childhood. And that's why it's good to remember the situations or traumas or whatever from the childhood, because
Mhm.
those are the biggest triggers in our
Mhm.
life, which has shaped our beliefs or ways we act today. So when
Mhm.
I was a kid, I was always like, by my mother, I was always said in Russian, children talk only when grown ups are talking, the children are quiet.
Mhm.
Or in Estonian, there is the child talks only when the chicken pees. Chicken
Mhm.
never pee.
Mhm.
So later, where I grew up, I started to read a lot of like this. I don't know, a relationship novels for teenagers. And I
Mhm.
really wanted to share with my friends all my like insights and what I discovered. And every time they told me, Yuta, don't be a smartass, put your glasses on. So I shut myself off.
Yeah.
And then, looking back and looking at how am I communicating with people. When I'm in a room with strangers, I have been always quiet. And when I'm
Mhm.
in a room with my sister or with my friends, I was just over giving all the time, like oversharing. And
Mhm.
like now it's easy to just connect these dots and understand that actually I have always had these insights I wanted to share.
Mhm.
And eventually when I grew up, I was older, I had finally like proper friends. I just gave them insights about everything. Montessori,
Mhm.
permaculture, whoever was able to listen to me, I just talked and talked and talked.
Mhm.
So I went into another, like another polarity of it. At first I was shut, then I just went into oversharing. So
Mhm. Mhm.
today I'm trying to find the balance where I don't overshare and
Mhm.
share my insight when they are invited. So this
Mhm.
has been my journey from like the biggest shadow to the genius part. Because when I was teenager, I was bullied in school for 3 years by my own best friends. And the reason they bullied me was that I had said something about them.
Mhm.
And they said it, and I was okay. I can't remember, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I don't remember, but I'm sorry that I said it. And today I
Mhm.
look back. Even then, I didn't trust my own. Like I didn't trust me because
Mhm.
I didn't say that. I wasn't.
Mhm.
I wasn't. And like and so anyway, that was like part of understanding that I gave my voice away and I accepted others' truths over
Mhm.
myself. So
Mhm.
putting all
Mhm.
this together now, I have realized, okay, this is my genius now. And the more I express it, the more I like have, the more brave I am about like taking on this identity and
Mhm.
talking about this. Because this is my very first podcast, especially
Mhm.
in English, about talking my work. Uh, the more I share it with like the clients I like,
Mhm.
they're like, "Wow, Yuta, that's good."
Mhm.
So the more I follow my genius, like almost like blindfolded and trust,
Mhm.
okay, that's the way for me. I will trust it. The more I go, the more fulfilled I feel. So this is like this for me. This is proof that that actually works. Behind your biggest shadow, flip the coin, and
Mhm.
you will see your genius.
Mhm. Yeah. But that's really interesting what you said about your friends bullying you, like, and such an example, I think, also of gaslighting, right? Where you trust what other people say over your own memory, right? And that, I think, is a classic manipulation tactic, basically, where people try to get you to like doubt yourself by telling you things that didn't happen, or telling things that like you did this, you did that, and like clearly it did not. Or opposite wise, like I have an example where somebody did something to me and I said, "Look, you did this to me and I'm not okay with it." And then they just like deny it completely, right? And so like the gaslighting, I think, can be really, it's a really common tactic that people use to try to get you to doubt yourself. So it's like learning to trust yourself even through those manipulation tactics can be really challenging as well.
Yes, but I
Uh,
really want to bring here that whatever these like bullies did, or whatever these other people do by gaslighting us, they're actually doing it unconsciously.
mhm.
And I today look back, mm, I'm not thankful to them, like really, but I'm grateful for the situation, because this situation, which I experienced then, gives me now much more strength to believe in
Mhm.
myself, because
Mhm.
I have had experience to feel the opposite. So
Mhm.
now I have, like, if I get to know the polarities, like very bad and very good, then I'm able to
Mhm.
center myself what is truly me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And
They're
I
doing it unconsciously.
do you think though? Do you think that like people don't know when they're lying?
They might know, sort of, but it's their protection tactics. Also with this narcissistic part, after I realized that I have had a lot of very narcissistic traits, I talked with few women who have had narcissistic relationships, one
Mhm.
worse than others, and we tried to like sharing with them. I tried to see if my way of seeing the narcissistic part and the other
Mhm.
second part like
Mhm.
matches, or am I living in illusion? So
Mhm.
the why people are lying, even if they know they're lying, is their protection mechanics. It
Mhm.
They are probably protecting their identity. Because
Mhm.
if you're saying to a narcissist, you're a narcissist, then
Well,
it
there's
will
no
not
point.
work.
There's no
It will not
point.
work.
Yeah.
Yes, because they will not believe it, they will not see it, and they will not see it only because if they would see it right away, okay, I'm a narcissist, their whole identity, their whole life will just fall apart.
Shatter. Mhm.
Yes, and
Mhm.
sometimes we ourselves choose to like let go of identities. Even then, it's hard. But
Mhm.
imagine if someone says to you in a moment, you're a narcissist, and
Mhm.
the like illusion breaks, and they were
Mhm.
not ready for it, and they didn't have a support system, and they
Mhm.
were not ready for it emotionally,
Mhm.
and even in their mind, like they wouldn't just comprehend what is happening to them.
Mhm.
Then that is this narcissist example just shows that people have a lot of these protective mechanisms. They are
Mhm.
just protecting their identity,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Yeah, and I
identity is the thing we can hold on to the most.
mhm. Yeah, and I think, the thing that, like, going back to my personal example of someone telling me that I am a horrible person, right? And so, like, my worry, my fear or something is like, oh, like, what if someone came to me and said, "Oh, you're a narcissist, Samantha?" And it's like I ask myself this all the time, right? Like I really try to check myself, like, "Oh, maybe I am a horrible person. Maybe I am a narcissist, right? Like maybe I do need to like figure these things out, right?" And that's like the reason behind these questions that I ask myself is like if I was going to go to, some narcissists that I know, right, and just tell them that they're a narcissist, and then they would just be in denial like, "Oh, whatever," right? And there's no accountability, there's no self-awareness, there's no reflection, right? And so like for me when people say things about me, it's like, "Okay, like maybe I should reflect on this. Like am I really a horrible person? Like do I do these things that people and so then it's about self-reflection rather than like I don't think my identity is not breaking. So like I personally don't think I'm a narcissist, and
Mhm.
I feel like most people who are willing to sit and examine themselves and ask themselves the question, like, am I a narcissist? Like probably not if you're actually willing to like go through the exercise. But I guess that's the reason why when people say negative things about you and they're like, "Oh, like maybe I am that way." Like, is that true?
If someone told me that, because like 2 years ago, I didn't have this word in my vocabulary when I was with these traits.
Mhm.
If someone told me was a bad person, I would never believe them because I did everything for everyone.
Mhm.
I had these stories in my mind, but
Mhm.
now after going this really big like shift in my identity last year with my deeper depression, I let go of every identity I had, like
Mhm.
everything. And only after that, coming back and looking back at my life, I
Mhm.
was thinking, okay, actually, I wasn't doing them a favor. I
Mhm.
was actually keeping control to keep myself safe.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yes,
So
if you're getting this like judgment, and then you self-reflect and you understand, no, I'm yeah, maybe I act that way, but that like it's in a healthy way, then that's
mhm.
fine.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's really important to understand where actually sometimes the criticisms come from as well,
Yeah.
because if they come from like if the criticisms come from an abusive partner, then obviously it's like not a healthy criticism, right? But if the criticism comes from someone, and that's also a word, like a criticism sometimes implies like negativity, but like for example, I have like my best friend in the world. We've been friends for like 15 years and he checks me on my bullshit, And so every once in a while he says, Sam, like like I say something about me or I say something about a situation and he's like, "No, Sam, like you're just like fooling yourself into whatever." And so he's like, that's not right." And like when it comes from a healthy place of love and like, like you need to like check yourself here in this area, and that I think is different than someone who's coming from like an abusive manipulative relationship and says like, "Oh, you're a horrible human being," and blah 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 blah. And then there's a difference there, of whether it's coming from a loving place versus like an abusive place.
Yeah,
Hmm.
true.
So oh my goodness. Um, I had a question actually then on, parents. Like I don't have kids. I don't have kids. I have some nieces and nephews, but you were talking about like your kids and putting them into the Montessori schools and stuff like that. And what are some challenges that you've had as a parent in terms of recognizing the programs that you maybe were putting into your kids and like how to change that, and then some of the techniques or tools that parents can use to try to not program their kids with some of these limiting beliefs that they're going to have to deal with
Mhm.
later.
So, as I said, already mentioned that the most important thing for a kid or for a person is to give a supportive environment.
Mhm.
So, um, and if you're asking about patterns or beliefs I'm giving to my children, I know that probably one of the beliefs that might hurt them in the future is connected with food,
Mhm.
because I have overcome um, like health issues I had during my high school, and it took me 17 years now to actually heal my gut, to feel good again, to feel healthy, and to be able to eat some foods. Because at some point I wasn't able to even eat um, unpeeled apple or
Mhm.
tomato. So I really went in. I studied as a nutritional therapist. I went really
Mhm.
deep into how food and the environment affects us, all the
Mhm.
cosmetics. Like I understood how poisonous everything is. And
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. So, but my kids, when they were small, it was easy to control the environment. But now, when they're older, they are in schools and kindergartens, I'm not able to control the food there. So,
Mhm.
or at the grandparents, sometimes they just step over my limits. And I have realized that has been my biggest struggle with with their grandparents and my parents, is I have set the boundary. I have expressed why, explained
Mhm.
how the food affects them, their body, their growth, and they're
Mhm.
still overstepping it.
Mhm.
And it always created these conflicts. And I always told my kids, you know what, you shouldn't eat this, you shouldn't eat that. And in one way, I have understood that yes, it's good to educate them, but maybe I have gone a bit too far. I don't just educate them, but I every time I create a trigger or tension in them concerning food. What can I
Mhm.
eat? What can I not? And
Mhm.
whenever there is some kind of limiting belief, even if it's like good limiting belief, don't eat that because it's not good for you, it's still limiting belief. It limits how you can eat to be healthy. I'm afraid that maybe in the future they will be scared of some foods, because
Mhm.
if you know that this food is not good for you and you eat it, it affects you much worse than the bad food, but you don't have any like judgment
Mhm.
towards it. So
Mhm.
this I'm starting to like rewrite with them. I explain them why I have this belief that they can do their own choices. It is their choice how they eat. I
Mhm.
just want to know them, like what kind of food what does, how to keep the balance. So that one is the one program which is the deepest, because I had my own thing with the food.
Mhm.
With other programs, mm, it's not. I don't at the moment. I don't see yet so deep patterns, because they come out later. We don't see them right away, and I don't see myself like very clearly all the time. But what to do with kids. So, for example, the two first ones, it was very easy for me. They were always this from the small age. I was always able to like this whenever didn't agree or I didn't agree or we didn't have the agreement. We like had a conversation. I explained to them. They explained
Mhm.
to me. It was calm, and we were able to go toward the way I wanted to go. So,
Mhm.
because I had to remind you, I had these narcissistic things. I wanted
Mhm.
others to do the way I wanted to do them to
Mhm.
do. So they were very. I think their personalities are the softer ones. They
Mhm.
go more with the with the flow of others. But the
Mhm.
youngest one, the youngest who is now 4, with her, it has been a difficulty because she's this rebel. Whenever I get triggered, she just goes into tantrum, or at
Mhm.
least she went. So I thought, okay, Yuta, slow down again. Try all your like this calm parenting techniques. Talk with her. Then it didn't work. Nothing worked.
Mhm.
Then I
Mhm.
tried the strict ones. Okay, let's make boundaries. If you do this, then I will put you there. For example,
Mhm.
if you hurt your sisters, because she even started to hurt them, I
Mhm.
will go with you to the kitchen and we will do
Mhm.
something else. We will not be able to play with them. So
Mhm.
it didn't work. Nothing.
Mhm.
So nothing didn't work, which I tried to do outside of myself.
Mhm.
So I stopped and I started to notice what I feel when she goes into tantrum and what are my patterns which are coming up. What are my
Mhm.
thoughts? What am I doing? How am I reacting? And I realized that she's the one who teaches me most to keep calm and don't react into others' behaviors. When
Mhm.
someone else is behaving badly, when someone else is telling bad things about you, when someone is pushing your boundaries and doesn't want to cooperate, how am I reacting?
Mhm.
If I go, because I think these narcissistic traits. I don't say I was a narcissist, but these narcissistic traits, they came from my childhood because I wasn't able to control anything. I didn't feel safe at home,
Mhm.
so when I moved out from home, I got all the control. So I
Mhm.
went into these other patterns. So
Mhm.
with my kids, I realized that the only thing with her I can do. I will not go into a parent who is hitting them or something. It
Mhm.
was a no go for me. So I thought, okay. And my mother always tells me she didn't allow us to cry when we were kids because she's not
Mm.
good with emotions. Even when my kids were small and crying, she wasn't able to handle it. When someone's crying, she's just poof. That's
Mhm.
it. I was like, okay, maybe it's like the same thing. My kid is triggering the part in me where I didn't allow myself to feel the feelings of tantrums because I
Mhm.
have been always a sensible kid who understands everyone and finds solutions.
Mhm.
So I stopped and I see her tantrums and I feel my own emotions coming up and I forget about her. I
Mhm.
started to sit with my emotions or walk away and just be and express my own emotions and notice what comes up. After
Mhm.
a few times, my emotions stopped. I was able to stay present with her, and now she still is able to push the boundaries of her father because he hasn't done the job yet, but
Mhm.
she doesn't push my boundaries anymore. We are
Mhm.
able to cooperate. Sometimes she throws a tantrum. I stay calm. She sees, okay,
Mhm.
there's a boundary. There's a safe person who stays,
Mhm.
who doesn't react, and
Mhm.
then she comes down and she just like goes into that kid mode again.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
about how to not give the patterns to kids, the only suggestion for me would be here is notice the patterns the kids are bringing up in you and work on
Mhm.
those patterns because there will always be programs, unconscious programs we give to our kids. And
Mhm.
I at first I thought that maybe it's possible, but actually it's not possible to stop all the limiting patterns our seventh generation has given us. It's
Mhm.
too big job, too big responsibility to take on, and too big expectations to ourselves. And then when
Mhm.
we see a pattern playing out in our kids, then we feel a failure. So it's
Mhm.
not a very healthy way to go. So, and just recently I heard an idea that whenever a child gets to an age where, at the same age where you got the trauma in your age, uh, she will trigger you. She will trigger
Mhm.
in you the same reaction. So
Mhm.
just to notice what your kids are bringing up in you and
Mhm.
work on yourself. Because if you stop those patterns,
Mhm.
uh, you will not give them kids.
Mhm.
Because the kids, though, they only they use their mirror neurons.
Mhm.
They see how you act. So
Mhm.
if you stop acting that way, you are breaking the pattern. But if
Mhm.
you're just worrying, I don't want to give the pattern to a kid, it's about managing your outer reality. It's not
Mhm.
working with yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. I think that's such an interesting example actually of see like because we often say, like if you want to see things in the external world, you have to change the internal world first, right? Like the external world is a reflection of what's inside, right? And that's such an interesting example of changing your inner world and seeing the direct results from your daughter on the outside. And what I also think is really interesting, and I don't know exactly the science behind this, but because like the mother is carrying the baby for 9 months, right? And so then the baby has cells of the mother, but the mother also has cells of the baby, right? And so that's why they say a lot of the time, like even years later, like if something happens to the child, the mother will know. Like it could be even on the other side of the world, something happens to the child, the mother will know because of that exchange of cells, right? And so the mother has the cells of the baby within her body for the rest of her life, right? And
Mhm.
so I wonder if there's like a science behind that, because what I've also read is that and heard, through parenting, is that from, and I don't know how old your daughter is, right? But from like the ages of like 0 to 3, basically like the baby stage, the children are not able to control and manage their own emotions, right? And so it comes down to the mother primarily to be able to manage the emotions of the child. And that's why, the systems that we have, I don't know what it's like in Estonia, but the system that exists in the US, for example, like in Canada, we have 1 year maternity leave, so you can still be there to help regulate the emotions of the child for at least the first year, right? But in the US, for example, they don't have any maternity leave. And so that basically within weeks of giving birth, a lot of kids, like if you can't afford to take time off from work, a lot of kids are being put into daycare, and then like they're not learning how to manage their own emotions because they don't have the stability of the mother there to calm them down when they feel these emotions, right? And so I think it's
Mhm.
really interesting how your like when you managed your emotions and when you like calmed your own emotions inside, that there was a direct reflection there through your daughter. Like that to me is amazing. That's so interesting.
Yes, and from 0 to 3, a child, she doesn't they don't really like feel themselves
Separate.
separate from the
Yeah.
environment. Yes,
Yeah.
they see everything as they like everything is one for them. And then
Yeah.
from 3 to 6, they start to like understand who they are in the
Mhm.
society.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's true that the child and the mother they feel each other,
Mhm.
but again, I have realized that sometimes mothers can't be present. So then
Mhm.
it's important to give them a person who is
Mhm.
feels safe enough, because
Yeah.
they feel, they don't understand, but they feel with
Mhm.
their aura or energy or
Yeah.
whatever how
Yeah.
safe is the person. And that's
Mhm.
why, like in history, there like mothers, although they were home, there were still these nannies who
Mhm.
breastfed them and took care of the kids, and still
Mhm.
kids grew up happy. Yes, they didn't have connection with the mother, so it
Mhm.
interfered maybe with the family dynamics.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
the children still felt loved and close to another person.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
think that for parents to keep in mind is to really like what we did is, at first I was the person safe for kids. I breastfed all my kids like 2.5 years,
Mhm.
and after I finished, I like there was my breakdown. So I was at first I was the safe person, and then
Mhm.
when at that time my husband, we talked about that I have to leave, and then we thought, okay, I have been this person for 8 years. Now
Mhm.
let's switch the roles. They're big enough. Now you will be the safe person until
Mhm.
I am able to come back and like
Mhm.
normalize myself.
Mhm.
And looking back at my life, I realized that although my mother was the one who breastfed me for a longer period of time, I had both parents, but they were both in like a lot in survival mode and
Mhm.
very actively. So I didn't have this, and we didn't have any relatives because I was born in Russia and my mother came to Estonia. So we
Mhm.
didn't have any close relatives. A lot of
Mhm.
kids have grandmothers. So when
Mhm.
parents are stressed out, at least they go to the grandmother who is able to
Mhm.
regulate herself, and the child feels heard or seen. I didn't
Mhm.
have that. So for me, yes, my mother has been always close, and she has been like at home all the time, never working. I didn't feel this safety
Mhm.
because she wasn't feeling
Mhm.
safe
Mhm.
herself also. So
Yeah.
again, for the parents, it's important to take care of themselves first. If they are able to ground themselves and feel
Mhm.
good, they are able to support the upbringing of the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really powerful actually, like the what you said about like if your mom is not feeling safe, then you don't feel safe because you pick up on that, right? Like kids can feel your emotions. They pick up on your emotions. And so the fact that you're able to identify that as one of the programs, I suppose, and then learn how to break that program. So that's pretty amazing. So so we're getting close to the end of our time now. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
I think we have talked about almost everything that has been important to me. We have talked about food a bit,
Yeah.
about the children, and about how people are actually like being evolving into their identities, and knowing all this base about how kids are sort of creating their own identities, and
Mhm.
then working with grown-ups actually the same way,
Mhm.
understanding that their inner kid is actually
Yeah.
inside there, with having all these programs. So
Yeah.
working with that part,
Mhm.
and then like bringing the bridge, I think, from the child to the grown up and understanding where the alignment comes in. Because if
Mhm.
we only look from the perspective of our grown up person to understand, okay, my grown up person wants to go there, then it's only halfway because there is
Mhm.
a kid in us who is still a
Mhm.
kid.
Mhm.
And there is this. When we ask ourselves what we loved to do the most as a kids or what we like enjoyed, then we again can get closer with what we enjoyed to do as a kids and we were conditioned. Then we understand what we have forgotten as grown-ups,
Mhm.
and then we
Mhm.
can sort of narrow that down to who we actually are.
Mhm. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm pretty convinced actually that there's no such thing as grown-ups. We're all just like little kids running around in adult bodies, trying to figure the world out. So
Yeah, I agree with that, because I agree. The only thing grown-ups has different than kids is that we are conditioned.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Cause like when I look at my little niblets, I have 4 of them, and when I look at them and I see, like, how uninhibited they are, and, that now the older one, he's starting to get, like, a little bit more inhibited because he's getting into that preteen phase, and it's
Mhm.
so interesting to see, the difference in, like, how they change as they get older and, like, "Oh, just stay, like, young and carefree forever," like, but it's a journey that they have to go through on their own, so, yeah,
Yes.
so
And you as an aunt, yes, you're their aunt.
yes, I'm their aunt, and so I
You
try
as an
to
aunt.
Yeah,
You
I
as
try.
an aunt can give them this space of like asking questions. Do you love it? Do you still enjoy it? Why do you want to do it? Do you want to do it
Mhm.
because you think it gives you a better life, or you
Mhm.
want to do it because it makes you happy? So you
Mhm.
can be the part of their life, in their
Yeah.
life, who like widens their perspective and reminds them, helps them to remind who they are as a kids.
Mhm.
Because yes, as you said, we are all kids running around.
Yeah, I totally 100% believe that, yeah, and I do try, like, I try my very best to, to be that person who and also be, like, a safe space where they can come, like, and talk to me because sometimes there are things that kids want to talk to an adult about, but they don't necessarily wanna talk to mom and dad or even, like, grandma and grandpa, so I try to be that safe space that they can go to, that they can come to and talk to things about, so yeah. But anyways, it's been so amazing to have you on the show. Where can people find you online if they want to get in contact with you?
Mhm. And so the first and the easiest place to find me is my homepage. It's jutalipmeister.com.
Mm,
And another where I post more is my Instagram. Also, my own name. Just find me by my name, and
yeah.
that's it.
Okay.
Instagram is the main place where I post the most, I think. And
Okay.
it's easiest and fastest way to contact me from there
Okay.
also.
Amazing. Okay. And we will put the links of that in the video notes as well. So people will have access to you there. So thank you, Yuta, so much for being on the show today. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed our conversation. So I hope you did as well. And thank you for being the very first podcast for you. So yeah, that's very exciting. So I'm very grateful that I got to have this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, yes.
Yeah.
Bye.
DJ Savvy.